When people hear paper money, they usually think of something modern: banks, central banks, printing presses. But the truth is much more uncomfortable. Paper money is not a modern invention at all. It was born nearly 1,000 years ago in China, and the story of how it emerged and how it nearly destroyed the system that created it tells us more about power, trust, and human behavior than most economics textbooks ever will. To understand why China invented paper money, you have to start with a practical problem, not an ideological one. Medieval China had a booming economy. Trade networks stretched across vast distances. Cities were massive by pre-modern standards. Markets were active, specialized, and highly monetized. And all of this ran on metal coins, mostly copper. There was just one issue: coins were heavy, extremely heavy. Merchants transporting large sums had to carry strings of thousands of coins. Long-distance trade became a logistical nightmare. Moving money was slow, risky, and inefficient. Bandits didn't need to steal goods. Stealing the money itself was enough. So merchants did what merchants always do: they innovated. Instead of physically carrying coins, traders began depositing them with trusted merchants or regional warehouses. In exchange, they received paper receipts. These slips of paper represented a claim on real metal stored elsewhere. At first, these receipts were private, informal, based purely on reputation and trust. And they worked. People accepted them because they trusted the issuer. The paper wasn't valuable. The promise behind it was. This is the key point many people miss. Paper money didn't start as fraud. It started as efficiency. Eventually, the Chinese state noticed what was happening. During the Song Dynasty, around the 10th and 11th centuries, the government realized that private paper money had become widespread. Instead of banning it, they did something far more ambitious. They took it over. The state began issuing its own paper currency, officially backed by deposits of copper coins. At least that was the promise. For the first time in history, a government was saying, "You don't need metal in your hand. You can trust us instead." At first, it worked remarkably well. Trade accelerated, transportation became easier, economic activity expanded. The Song Dynasty presided over one of the most commercially sophisticated societies the world had ever seen. But success created temptation. Running a large empire is expensive. Armies need funding. Bureaucracies grow. Infrastructure must be maintained. And collecting taxes is always politically painful. Printing paper, on the other hand, feels painless. So the rules began to loosen. The state issued more paper notes than it could realistically back with metal. Officials reassured the public that everything was under control. After all, the notes still looked the same. The seals were official. The authority was unquestioned. But money doesn't run on authority alone, it runs on belief. As more notes entered circulation, people began to notice subtle changes. Prices crept upward. Merchants started demanding more paper for the same goods. Savers realized that holding notes meant slowly losing purchasing power. Confidence began to crack. And once trust in money weakens, it doesn't fail gently, it accelerates. Later dynasties repeated the same pattern, but on a larger scale. Under the Yuan dynasty, ruled by the Mongols, paper money became the primary currency. Metal backing was reduced even further. Printing accelerated dramatically, especially to fund wars and administration across an enormous empire. Inflation surged. People tried to escape paper money by converting it into goods, land, or foreign currencies. Trade distorted, hoarding increased. The state responded the way states often do, by force. Laws mandated acceptance of paper money. Penalties were imposed for refusal, None of it worked. You cannot threaten people into trusting money. By the time of the Ming Dynasty, the situation had become so unstable that paper currency effectively collapsed. Hyperinflation wiped out savings. Wages lost meaning. The population abandoned paper money altogether, turning instead to silver, much of it flowing in from Japan and later from Spanish colonies in the Americas. Think about that for a moment. The civilization that invented paper money lost so much trust in it that it reverted to metal, not because silver was modern, but because it was honest. This is the price China paid. Not just economic disruption, but a deep institutional trauma. For centuries afterward, Chinese governments remained wary of paper currency. The memory lingered. Paper promises are easy to make and disastrously easy to abuse. And here's where the story stops being ancient history, because the pattern is painfully familiar. Paper money always begins with good intentions, convenience, growth, flexibility. It solves real problems. But once money is detached from something real, metal, labor, scarcity, it becomes irresistible to those in power. Why raise taxes when you can print? Why cut spending when you can delay the cost? Why tell people the truth when inflation spreads blame quietly? China discovered this dynamic 1,000 years ago. The lesson isn't that paper money is evil. It's that money is a social contract. And every time that contract is stretched, bent, or quietly rewritten, trust erodes. When trust goes, everything else follows. Prices distort. Planning becomes impossible. Society shortens its time horizon. People stop building and start protecting. China paid the price early so the rest of the world could learn. The question is whether we actually did. Because today, almost every economy on Earth runs on paper promises. And just like in Song China, the system works until it doesn't. History doesn't shout warnings, it whispers them. And the invention of paper money was one of the first whispers we ever ignored.